This time I got a Toshiba DVD player. We've looked at this one before. I've been using this one for playing back stuff on my in-house network. And it started to show a problem where it will play, about 10 or 15 minutes and then it starts to freeze. And then it'll play for a little while longer and then it starts to freeze again. So let's take a look at this one and see if we can get to the bottom of why it's doing this. Let's check it out. Okay, I've got that same video. This is playing on a Toshiba and the picture is better. Put on the display, you'll see that the bit rate on this one is actually higher, up to 11.5 megabits. This was recorded at the highest bit rate that my DVD recorder could handle. Most of my Toshiba DVD recorders, they max out around 8 megabits. This was done on the Sony. And as you can see, the bit rate is, over 10 megabits at points. But it looks good. It looks much better than playing this same disc on a Philips. The actual picture quality is better on this one, just from a better chipset. Cat wants my attention. This DVD player has a problem though, so it's going to probably start skipping. Like the laser's worn out on this one. Okay, so as you can see, this DVD player is freezing. Literally, it's freezing. So I don't know whether it's a motor problem or a pickup problem. It's one of the two. This is one we've seen before. This is one that I basically run constantly and have it using it for playing back content on my inside network. So this thing's got a gajillion hours on it, but as you can see, after it played for 13 minutes, it's just frozen. So I think we'll investigate and just see why it's freezing. Is it sticking? Is the laser sticking? Or is the laser itself worn out? Which is always a possibility. Or it could be the spindle motor. It could be the spindle motor resonating, causing the disc to wobble. What happens, or what can happen, is the bearings wear out on the spindle motor and they cause the disc to start to shake when it gets to a certain speed, because as the laser moves out from the start of the disc, see now it's playing again, but as the laser moves out, the disc slows down, and as the motor wears out, it can start to resonate when it gets to certain speeds, which can cause tracking issues. It's freezing again now. Seems to play for the first maybe 10 minutes, and then it starts to act up after 10 minutes. So you guys probably remember this one. It's been shown before. I get the sneaking suspicion it's the motor that's causing it. And the reason I say that is because I can feel the vibration in the chassis as the disc spins. You can probably hear it when I get my finger near the edge of the disc too. I get the sneaking suspicion that's where the fault is. As the disc starts to resonate, you can see it if you look around the edge here. Maybe it doesn't show up on camera as well, but it certainly is very apparent. You can see the shake, right? I'm pretty sure it's the motor. It's going bad on this one. As I skip the laser out, further out to the next track, for example, the disc will slow some more. And it's still not able to read. Bit rates drop to like 0. Go right back to the beginning and it's fine because the motor spins up and that vibration has gone away. Pull the mechanism out. Ultimately the motor needs to be replaced, and I'm not going to find one. Unless I can steal one out of that old Zenith player that the chip is shot on. Maybe able to steal one out of that player. I've still got that one kicking around here. There. Okay, so that's the pickup out of this one. I think it's just this motor here is the problem. So let's give it some juice to the motor over here. Let's spin this thing up and just see how bad it sounds. I bet it sounds really loud when it spins up. Oh yeah, hear the racket it's making? If I crank this out, that was only 3 volts. We'll give it a little bit more juice here. How about 10 volts? That bearing is quite loud on this. I'm pretty sure this is the problem here. I can feel play in this motor. I wonder if I've got one. You know, it's just a regular DC motor. The only key is getting the spindle to the same height. I think I can take this motor out of here as well. It's probably the same motor as this one over here. But if I remove these screws, there's 3 screws, I should be able to slip this motor right out. At one time this was a replaceable part. Like you bought the entire motor assembly and it came with the spindle on it already. That should lift this motor out, which it will. I gotta disconnect the wires over here where it's connected to the interface board. It's funny how much these all look alike, you know, these DVD players. When you look at them, they all look so much alike, the way that they're set up. It's like you would think that they all came off the same production line. They probably came off very similar lines from, you know, the different manufacturers. Going to remove this. I'm going to grab that Zenith, which is an LG, and try pulling the motor out of that and see whether the motor is compatible. But this is where I think the problem is on this one here. You can hear it and you can feel it. There's play. There's play in this when I move it. I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but there definitely is play in this bearing. And I think what the problem is when it's spinning at a certain speed, that play there, you can probably see it now on camera. See the play? There. See that? I think the bearing has gone bad and it's allowing the disc to wobble. And when it gets to a specific speed, that wobble is just at the right resonance that it causes the laser to mistrack. That's what I think is wrong with this one. And I can feel the motor when I spin it. I can feel it's rough. If I spin it near the microphone, you might be able to hear it. So let me just spin this thing right up near the microphone, see if you can hear what I'm talking about. Hear the noise? So this is the Zenith. Oh, wonderful. They're not using regular screws. They are using little hex keys on here to hold the motor assembly in place. That's, but I think the motor is looks to be the same. Wonder if the spacing is the same for the spindle. That's always the big thing, right? Is the spacing the same? May have to pop the top off one and onto the other, but I think the motor itself is the same if I can get it out of here. Let's just drop this motor out by removing these screws. Okay. Now the question is whether this motor is going to fit. Now it looks to be the same size. You know, it looks to be the same motor. I'm looking at the spindle height here. Is the spindle height the same? Yeah, it looks like it's pretty darn close. And this one spins quiet compared to this one. Just looking at the way that the disc gets clamped. It's a magnetic clamp on this one, and this one here has no magnetic clamp. Well, it is, but it's a different. The magnet's in here, on here. This one here is a different. It's a different insert, so I'll have to change the. I'll have to change the top. Pop one off and pop it on the other. This is always the fun part, getting the alignment on them, but yeah, it's a slightly different disc clamp, so the disc is not going to clamp the same, I don't think. If I put that on there like that, and put that on, no, that's not going to clamp. Getting closer at the motor, it's not going to fit anyway, because this one here has screws, of course, in the top that hold the motor in place, as you can see. This one here does not have any screws in the top. They're only on the bottom on this one. So even though the motor looks to be the same physical size, it's the same physical diameter, and it's the same height, the motor's not going to fit because there's no way to screw this one in, as there's no screws in the top. So that idea is one that's not going to work, unfortunately. So I don't know whether I can lubricate this motor and stop the thing from being noisy like that. Could try getting a drop of oil, I guess, into the actual sintered bearing and see if that will quieten this one down a bit and make it play a little better. It's about the only thing I can think of to try to extend the life of this one a little bit. So I'm just going to put a drop of oil onto the end of my dental pick, and we'll try to get this down as low as we can here into the bearing itself, like that. Get some oil right down into that bearing. Push the little top piece that keeps the dust out, the dust cap, back in place. Maybe that will lubricate that bearing a bit. I don't know if I can get anything into the back side of it here. It'd be nice if I could get some into the back side as well, but that may not be quite as easy. Just going to spin it here for a bit. Let the oil work its way down into the bearing. I mean, I don't expect this is going to be a long-term fix. If you think that I think that this is going to be a permanent long-term fix, no, it's not. The permanent fix would be to change the motor out, but I don't have one. And yes, a motor like this might be available, but it's not worth it, right? This is just kind of a, let's see whether I can make this thing work, and if I can, great. But I'm not expecting any miracles. I'm just wanting to tinker around with it and see if I can make it work. Okay, so to line up the holes to the motor again. Okay, that's back in place. We'll reattach the power wires, and I'll plug it back in and just see whether it does anything different. I know what it does before, so if it plays longer or doesn't skip, then I know that I've made a difference. But this one here is to the point where how it was constantly acting up, so it would not play a full disc without skipping or freezing, I should say. So I'll know within a few minutes if it plays. If it makes it through the disc, if it makes it past the 15-minute mark on the disc, then I've made an improvement. If it doesn't, then I haven't. I'll find out momentarily. Right, I'll mount the transport again. That's how it sits. Could be this ribbon cable too, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's this. It's all speed and the vibration. I hate these ribbon cables, you know, I really do. I really hate these ribbon cables with a passion. Alright, that's reseated. Put on the clamp. Let's just open it up. I'm actually starting to think it's the ribbon cable. You know that as it moves, it's losing focus. I think that's probably what it is. Is as this thing bends. I think that's where the fault is on this. It's playing now, but watch when I flex the cable here. We'll see how it plays, but as I flex this cable, it will freeze. And of course now it's not going to do it for me. There, you see? As I flex that cable, it's freezing. I think that's the fault on this one. I first thought the motor, because it seemed to do it at certain speeds, but you know, as the laser moves out, the cable flexes, and I think that's what's happening. Is it's there's a fracture in the cable, and as it moves, it loses signal, either losing focus or losing tracking, and it just stops. I think that's where the fault is on this one. I think this ribbon cable is it's either the ribbon cable or the socket, but I think it's the ribbon cable. Is just from the constant flexing. I mean, that happened on CD players as well, because as the unit plays, of course, the laser pops out like that, and that ribbon cable flexes. And I get a sneaking suspicion there's probably a break It's probably right around in here. And as it moves, it's losing its connection. That's what I'm starting to think the problem is on this one. It'll spin up and it will play, but I bet you it will still do it. It'll still skip. Okay, there, it's playing now. And if I just so much as touch this and move it ever so slightly, I can make it freeze. This was quite a common fault on CD players of this vintage as well. Oops. Especially people that used their random play a lot. Let's go ahead to the next track here. Okay, it's breaking up now. Now, I wonder if I touch this when it's breaking up, whether it'll fix it. So let's just see. If I press on this, will it fix it? So we can get in there with something to pull up on it, like this. I'll just let it play from the beginning and see whether it does it, still does it. Let's stop this and start it up again from the beginning. Put it on auto repeat and just see what it does. But the motor's quiet now. It's not making that noise it was making before, and I don't feel the vibration. So getting some oil into the bearing certainly quietened it down. I'm just not 100% sure that that's it. It might be this flex cable. I guess we'll find out if it can play the disc through without breaking up. Then maybe it is just the motor. I guess I'll find out. I'm going to let this play, and I'll let you guys know. Well, I've been going for 40 minutes, and it hasn't skipped a beat. I'm starting to think that it was the motor, and not so much the maybe just when I touched the edge connector after plugging it back in, it didn't make a good connection initially, because it's not freezing, and it would at this point in the game, it would have been freezing and stopping and stuttering, and I'm going to let this continue to play, but I've been watching it now for the past 40 minutes, and it hasn't froze like it used to do after about 10 or 11 minutes. It would just freeze right up, and it would not advance. It would just stop right there. I don't feel the vibration on the disc when it's spinning like I did before. So it could have been just the bearing was a little bit dry, and just giving it a drop of oil is all it needed to free it up and give it a little more life. I mean, that's all I've done is I took the motor out, put a drop of oil on it, and put it back in. And it wasn't playing very well before. And at this point, it's still playing. I guess time will tell. I'll leave this thing sit running for a while and see if it continues to play, but so far, so good. Well, this unit's still running. It's been going now for 59 minutes and 45 seconds, and it's starting to hang up right at the very end of this disc. Now this is right at the extreme edge of the burn, but as you can see, it did freeze up in the last 2 minutes of the disc. Played it up to this point pretty good. Didn't notice much when I was watching it of any problems, but it's now doing it at this point of the disc. But I'm going to show you something about this disc. So this disc was recorded on the Sony burner, and it is literally recorded right to the extreme edge of the disc. You can see where the data goes to. So I'm going to grab another one which was recorded on one of my other standalone recorders. You'll see the difference as to how far they burn compared to this one. This one goes right to the edge. The other ones generally stop about 1/4 of an inch in. For example, this is a disc that was recorded on my old Light-On. As you can see, this disc is full, but it only records out to about, well, a good 1/4 inch from the end, as a lot of them do. The Sony records at a higher bit rate and records right out to the very edge of this disc. Here's another disc. These are both Memorex. And if we look at the actual data area on this one, you'll see that this was recorded on a Toshiba DVD recorder, and as you can see, the disc is completely full, but it only records out, again, like the Light-On, it stops at about 1/4 of an inch before the end of the disc, meaning it's recording at a little bit lower bit rate because it's still 1 hour and 3 minutes is the recording time, but obviously it's not completely filling the disc. I'm going to play this one. We'll see whether this one hangs up right at the very edge, because it could just be the data is recorded just a little bit too far out on the disc for this particular player to handle. So I'll start this one playing, set my repeat for the entire disc, and we'll take a look and see how this one operates. And if I look at the display on this one, the bit rate on this is only 8 megabits, 9 megabits maximum, whereas on this one here the bit rate went up to almost 11 megabits. That Sony standalone recorder actually does do a better job though. I'll do a video at some point. I'll do a comparison video. We'll do some recording on that Sony recorder as well as my Toshiba or Panasonic, and we can look at the difference in the quality, because I've noticed it immediately that it actually does a better job. In the 1 hour speed, I haven't tried other slower speeds, but in the 1 hour speed, it certainly does have a noticeably improved picture than some of the other recorders that I've got, and that would be because the bit rate is higher. Well, 50 minutes in on this disc, and so far, no freezing. We'll see if it makes it all the way through and repeats. Again, this disc is recorded on a Toshiba recorder, which doesn't record quite as far out on the disc as Sony does. So it might be just because the Sony is recording right to the extreme edge of the disc that this one's having a little bit of trouble playing that last minute or so. No, it behaved the same way once I got out to the edge of the disc here. I think if I just touch this cable, it'll probably start playing. If we watch the video counter, it's at 5850. I think if I probably just move this ever so slightly, it will start playing again. I get a sneaking suspicion that's where the fault is on this, is this flex cable has got a problem. There it goes, you see? Yeah, it's the flex cable. It's the flex cable that's gone bad on this one. Oh well, at least we know. If I only play the first chapter or two, it's fine, but if I try to play the whole disc, it just starts breaking up. It's doing it again. Right? And if I just lift up on the flex cable a bit, it'll start playing again. There we go, you see? So we got a bad flex cable. That's too bad. If I hold it in position, it works. If I let go of it, it stops. But if I rewind this back to an earlier point, it'll play. Right now it's going to play fine because the angle is changing. So don't overlook the bad flex cables. If I put this into repeat mode and just told it to repeat the first chapter over and over again, this doesn't move much and you're not getting the flex, which is opening up a connection on it. Anyway, Well, now we know where the problem is on this one. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.